The human outpost on Proxima B was a small collection of domes and research buildings nestled in a valley. The red dwarf star cast everything in a permanent orange glow. For 3 years, the 50-member team had worked in peace, studying the EU planet's unique ecosystem. That changed on the day Commander Take arrived. The first sign was a low rumble that shook the ground. Scientists ran outside to see a massive ship descending through the clouds. It was unlike any human vessel, black and angular with glowing red lines running along its hull. "Alert, Command," ordered Director Kang, the outpost leader. "We have unplanned visitors." The ship landed half a kilometer from the main dome, crushing the delicate crystal formations that the botanists had been studying for months. A ramp extended, and out stepped beings that made the humans stop and stare. They were tall, nearly 3 meters, with skin like polished obsidian. 4 glowing yellow eyes were arranged around a central ridge, and their bodies were covered in natural armor plates. They moved with surprising grace despite their bulk. Director Kang called an emergency meeting. "We need someone to make first contact, someone with diplomatic experience." "Minji should go," suggested Dr. Park, pointing to the small woman sitting quietly in the corner. "She handled the difficult negotiations with the United African Alliance last year." Minji Kim was not what most would picture as humanity's representative. She stood barely 155 centimeters tall and weighed less than most of the equipment she worked with. 2 months ago, she had contracted a mysterious virus that left her even thinner than usual, with dark circles under her eyes. "Are you sure you're up for this?" Director Kang asked her privately. Minji nodded. "I've studied xenolinguistics for 15 years. This is what I trained for." She dressed in the formal blue uniform of the Earth Science Division and walked toward the alien ship, accompanied by 2 security officers who looked nervous. The aliens had arranged themselves in a semicircle. The largest stood in the center, wearing elaborate armor with glowing symbols. A device on his chest hummed and clicked. "I am Minji Kim of Earth," she said clearly, making the universal greeting gesture, hands open, palms forward. The alien leader stared down at her. Then his mouth opened, revealing rows of teeth. A sound like rocks grinding together emerged, laughter. The translation device on his chest spoke in a metallic voice. "This is who you send to meet me? A tiny female?" His tone dripped with mockery. "On my world, we would not even trust her to carry supplies." The security officers tensed, but Minji remained calm. She had faced discrimination before. Being a female scientist of Korean descent had prepared her for exactly this kind of dismissal. "Welcome." "To Proxima B, Commander. I assure you I'm fully qualified to discuss diplomatic relations." The alien leaned down, bringing his face uncomfortably close to hers. She could smell something like sulfur on his breath. "I am Commander Taik of the mighty Drax Empire. My species has conquered worlds for 10,000 years." His voice became deeper. "My empire spans 12 star systems. We crush civilizations like yours without effort. Remember that, little human." Minji didn't step back. "We're a research outpost, Commander Taik. We have no quarrel with your empire." Taik straightened. "We will establish our base here. Your people may continue their playing with plants and rocks, but know that this world now belongs to the Drax?" "That would need to be discussed with Earth Central," Minji replied evenly. "We have protocols for—" "Protocols," Taik interrupted. "Do you think we care about your protocols? We take what we want." One of the other aliens stepped forward and whispered something to Taik. After a moment, Taik nodded. "We will allow you time to inform your leaders. 3 days. Then we discuss terms of your continued presence." Minji recognized the threat, but maintained her composure. "We appreciate the time, Commander. May I ask what brings the Drax to this system?" Taik's eyes glowed brighter. "Resources, technology, power, the usual things empires seek." He looked around at the research station with obvious disdain. "Though I see little of value here, perhaps we could share our research findings," Minji offered. "Our studies of the local environment might—" Taik's laughter cut her off again. "What could we possibly learn from such weak creatures? Your kind struggles to survive even in ideal conditions." He turned to leave but paused. 3 days, little female. Tell your leaders that the Drax are merciful. We allow surrenders. Occasionally. As the aliens returned to their ship, the security officers let out long breaths. That went well, one muttered. Actually, said Minji, it did. They could have killed us immediately. She watched the aliens with careful eyes. They're arrogant, but they followed contact protocols. That means they have rules, and where there are rules, there are opportunities. She turned toward the command center. We need to prepare. The real challenge starts now. 5 Drax ships hovered in the orange, sky above Proxima b by the end of the first week. By the second week, there were 12. The human outpost, once peaceful, now buzzed with nervous energy, as everyone tried to maintain their work routines under the shadow of alien vessels. Director Kang called daily meetings in the main dome. Earth Command still hasn't responded to our distress signals, he told the gathered scientists. The solar flares are blocking long-range communications. How long until the flares die down? Asked Dr. Park. At least another month, said the communications officer. We're on our own. Until then. Minji spent her days meeting with Commander Take and her nights analyzing the data she collected. The Drax had set up a base camp 10 kilometers from the human outpost. They brought mining equipment and began digging into the nearby mountains, without permission. Every meeting followed the same pattern. Tyke would make demands and Minji would try to negotiate more reasonable terms. We require 50% of your water reserves, Tyke announced during their 5th meeting. He sat on a large throne-like chair while Minji stood before him. That would leave us with barely enough to survive, Minji explained. We could share 10%. Tyke's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Your kind is physically inadequate. It amazes me you've managed space travel at all. He leaned forward. You drink too much water because your bodies are inefficient. 25%. That is my final offer. Minji agreed, knowing they could recycle more aggressively to make up the difference. Back at the lab, she examined the samples she had collected. Sweat from Tyke's chair, soil from where the Drax had walked, air samples from near their breathing apparatus. Their biochemistry is fascinating, she told Dr. Song, the team's biologist. Their cells have a copper base instead of iron. And look, at these protein structures. Dr. Song peered through the microscope. They're complex but rigid, not very adaptable. Exactly, said Minji. They evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme stability. Their environment rarely changed, so they developed strength over adaptability. The pattern became clearer with each interaction. The Drax were physically impressive, but inflexible in their thinking. They relied on intimidation and raw power. When those failed, they became frustrated. On the 18th day, Tyke demanded access to the human database. You will share all your technology, he ordered. Our technology might not be compatible with your systems, Minji suggested. Perhaps we could start with something smaller, like agricultural techniques. Take slammed his fist on his armrest. Do not play games with me, little human. Your species is weak and soft. The only reason we haven't crushed you is that it would be too easy to be satisfying. That night, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Everyone rushed outside to see a bright flash in the sky. The atmospheric research satellite, gasped one of the engineers. They destroyed it. The next morning, Tyke summoned Minji to his camp. Unlike previous meetings held inside, this one took place on an open field. All 50 Drax warriors stood in formation behind their commander. Did you enjoy our little display? Tyke asked, his voice booming across the field. You destroyed valuable scientific equipment, Minji replied calmly. Equipment that was helping us study this planet, which could benefit both our species. This is merely a taste, Tyke announced. Tomorrow I will show you real power. He gestured to the mountains where his people were mining. We have found what we came for. A rare element your kind hasn't even discovered yet. We will take it all. The mining is causing tremors, Minji informed him. Our geologists say it could trigger a major earthquake if you continue at this pace. Tyke laughed. Are you threatening me with rocks and dirt? My ship can withstand the collapse of a small moon. Minji noticed something as he spoke. When Tyke became angry, the plates on his neck separated slightly, revealing softer tissue underneath. A weakness in their natural armor. Perhaps we can find a solution that works for everyone, she said. A way for you to get your element without risking lives. There is a simple solution, Tyke replied. You leave. This planet now belongs to the Drax Empire. As she walked back to the outpost, Minji felt the ground shake beneath her feet. The Drax were increasing their mining operations. Time was running out. We need to prepare for the worst, she told Director Kang, but I might have an idea. Later, that night, as most of the outpost slept, Minji worked alone in the lab. On her screen was a detailed analysis of Drax physiology and behavior patterns. If diplomacy failed, they would need another option. The emergency council meeting was called. As the outpost shook with another tremor, all 50 scientists crowded into the main dome, faces tense with worry. Director Kang stood at the front, showing images of the expanding Drax mining operation. At this rate, they'll trigger a major tectonic event within days, he explained. Our structure can't withstand that kind of shock. What about evacuation? Asked one of the engineers. The nearest rescue ship is 2 months away, Director Kang replied, and the Drax would likely shoot down any escape pods. The room fell silent. Then Minji stood up. She had spent the last 3 nights reviewing all available data on Drax culture and biology. I may have a solution, she said. Everyone turned to look at the small woman. During my meetings with Commander Tyke, he often references Drax traditions and laws. They're highly ritualistic. One particular custom caught my attention. She pulled up an image on the main screen, a page from an old alien text she had found in the xenoanthropology database. The Drax Challenge of Dominion, she explained. When 2 parties dispute territory, they can settle it through a formal competition instead of war. You want us to fight them? Dr. Song asked incredulously. They're 3 times our size. Not all of us, Minji replied. Just one representative, me. The room erupted in protests. That's suicide. You're still recovering from that virus. Minji raised her hand for silence. The challenge doesn't have to be purely physical. The challenger sets the terms, and I've been studying their weaknesses. Director Kang looked doubtful, but nodded. What's your plan? Their exoskeletons make them strong, but inflexible. Their metabolism is inefficient in our atmosphere, and most importantly, she pointed to some data charts, they're overconfident. They've never lost a challenge because no one has exploited these weaknesses before. After hours of debate, the council reluctantly agreed. There were no better options. The next morning, Minji walked alone to the Drax camp. She wore the standard blue uniform, but had modified it with sensors that connected to a small device on her wrist. The outpost's engineers had worked through the night to prepare the technology she might need. Commander Tyke was supervising the mining operation when she arrived. He turned, towering over her. The little human returns, he said mockingly. Have you come to surrender? Minji stood straight, her voice clear and formal. I formally invoke the Drax Challenge of Dominion. For a moment, Tyke seemed frozen in shock. Then his laughter echoed across the plain, so loud it startled nearby wildlife into flight. This must be a joke. He looked around at his warriors, who joined in the laughter. I am deadly serious, Minji replied. Unless you fear losing. To someone so weak. The laughter stopped abruptly. In Drax culture, refusing a challenge was dishonorable. Tyke's 4 eyes narrowed. You know nothing of our ways, he growled. The challenge is brutal. Many die even in victory. I've studied your customs, Minji countered. As challenger, I have the right to set the parameters. 3 trials, testing strength, endurance, and adaptability, the Drax warriors murmured. Among themselves, Tyke silenced them with a gesture. And what do you seek if you win? He asked, clearly humoring her. If I win, you leave this planet peacefully and never return, Minji said. If you win, we leave instead, and you keep our technology and research. Tyke considered this. The terms were favorable to him. He had planned to take everything anyway. Very well, he said finally. Let the challenge be recorded. One of the warriors stepped forward with a device that projected holographic symbols into the air. The trials will begin tomorrow at first light. As Minji turned to leave, Tyke called after her. Prepare yourself, little human. You will regret this humiliation. Minji looked back over her shoulder, a slight smile on her face. We'll see who regrets what. That evening, the outpost was divided. Some prepared evacuation plans, certain that Minji would fail. Others helped her train, setting up simulations based on what they knew of Drax's physiology. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Song asked, as she helped Minji adjust the sensors on her uniform. "No," Minji admitted, "but I'm sure about what happens if we do nothing." She spent her final hours before the challenge studying Drax's movement patterns and practicing techniques that might give her an advantage. When she finally lay down to rest, she didn't sleep. Instead, she listened to the rumbling of the planet below growing stronger by the hour. "Just hold together a little longer," she whispered to the ground beneath her. "I just need one day." The red sun of Proxima b was just rising when the challenge began. Hundreds of Drax warriors formed a circle around the testing grounds. The human scientists stood together on one side, nervous but hopeful. For them, Minji was their last chance. Commander Tyke arrived in ceremonial armor that gleamed in the morning. Light. He stood nearly 3 times Minji's height. Next to him, she looked like a child. "The challenge of Dominion consists of 3 trials," announced a Drax elder. "Each test must be completed or forfeited. Victory requires winning 2 of 3 trials." The first test was revealed. 2 massive stone blocks, each the size of a small car, sat on a sloped track. "Contestants must push their block to the marker," the elder explained. "First to arrive wins." Tyke approached his block with confidence. Minji studied hers carefully, walking around it, examining the ground beneath. "Begin!" shouted the elder. Tyke pushed his block with incredible force. It moved steadily up the slope, his powerful legs digging into the dirt for traction. "The Drax!" warriors cheered. Minji couldn't budge her block at first. She tried different angles with no success. The humans watched in silence, their hopes fading. Then Minji stepped back. She picked up some small rocks and placed them as rollers beneath one edge of the block. She found a long metal rod and wedged it under the block as a lever. Slowly, the massive stone began to move. Tyke was 3/4 of the way to the finish when he looked back. He was shocked to see Minji's block moving steadily behind his. Her technique was less powerful but more efficient. With a final grunt, Tyke pushed his block across the finish line. Minji arrived 30 seconds later, sweating. "Felt satisfied. Point to Commander Tyke," declared the elder. Tyke sneered at Minji. "Barely acceptable," he said. "The next trial will not allow for such tricks." Minji simply nodded, conserving her energy. The second trial took place in the foothills. Dark clouds gathered overhead as the elder explained the rules. Contestants must reach the peak by any path they choose. The mountain is unstable and a storm approaches. Speed and caution will both be needed. As if on cue, lightning flashed across the sky. Rain began to fall. "Begin!" Tyke chose the most direct path, using his strength to climb steep rock faces. Minji took a different approach, seeking out narrow paths that wound around the mountain. The rain made the rocks slippery. Tyke's weight became a disadvantage as footholds crumbled beneath him. Twice he had to backtrack and find new routes. Minji's lighter frame allowed her to cross areas that would collapse under Tyke's weight. She moved steadily, never rushing, always testing each step. Halfway up, the true storm hit. Wind howled around them, and lightning struck too close for comfort. Tyke roared in frustration as another ledge broke beneath him. Minji found shelter in small caves, waiting out the worst gusts before continuing. Her path was longer but safer. The peak came into view. Tyke was ahead, but struggling with a near-vertical climb. Minji spotted a narrow chimney in the rock face. Too small for Tyke, but perfect for her. She squeezed into the crack and climbed quickly. When she emerged, she was surprised to see Tyke pulling himself onto the summit at the same moment. "A tie," declared the elder who waited at the peak. "The score stands at 1 victory for Tyke, 1 tied. The final trial will decide." Both contestants were given 1 hour to rest. The humans provided Minji with water and food. She sat quietly, studying a map of the final challenge area. "The third trial takes place in the acid swamps," the elder announced later. "Contestants must cross the swamp and retrieve the marker on the far side. The first to return with the marker wins." Tyke looked pleased. "My natural armor resists acid," he boasted to his warriors. "The human's soft skin will burn away." The swamp stretched before them, bubbling with noxious gases. Strange plants grew in clusters, and the ground itself seemed alive, shifting and changing. "Begin!" Tyke charged directly into the swamp, his armor sizzling slightly as acid splashed against it. He moved with determination, crushing plants beneath his feet. Minji took a different approach. She had studied the swamp ecosystem and knew that certain plants indicated solid ground beneath. She hopped carefully from one safe spot to another, testing each step. Halfway across, Tyke's confidence turned to concern. His armor was holding, but each step became more difficult as the ground grew softer. Still, he pushed forward with brute force. Minji maintained a steady pace, sometimes taking longer routes to avoid dangerous areas. She watched as Tyke began to sink in the distance. Then she heard his roar of anger and fear. Tyke had stepped into quicksand, a mixture of acid and dissolving minerals. The more he struggled, the faster he sank. His armor, designed to resist impact, now worked against him with its weight. Minji reached the marker first, but looked back when she heard Tyke's distress. She could leave him there. Victory would be hers by default. Instead, she grabbed a long vine from a nearby plant. She tested its strength, then approached Tyke carefully. "Grab this," she called, throwing the vine within his reach. "I need no human help," he growled, still struggling. "Then you will die here," Minji replied calmly. "Your armor is too heavy." After another minute of sinking, Tyke reluctantly grabbed the vine. Minji anchored it around a sturdy tree and helped pull him free. As they made their way back, Tyke walked silently beside her. When they reached solid ground, the Drax warriors watched in confusion as their commander followed behind the small human woman. Minji placed the marker at the elder's feet. "The trial is complete," she said. The elder looked to Tyke. "You allow this outcome?" Tyke nodded slowly. The human won fairly, and with honor. The main dome of the human outpost was transformed. The research tables were pushed aside, and a simple stage was built at the center. All 50 scientists gathered in a circle, with the Drax warriors standing behind them. For the first time, the two species shared the same space without tension in the air. Commander Tyke walked slowly to the stage. His movements were different now, less aggressive, more thoughtful. His armor was scratched and damaged from the trials. He looked at the humans one by one before his gaze settled on Minji, who stood quietly beside Director Kang. 3 days ago, Tyke's voice rumbled through the dome. "I believed your species was weak. I thought strength was measured only by physical power." He paused, the plates on his neck adjusting as he searched for words. "I was wrong." The Drax warriors shifted uncomfortably. Their commander had never admitted error before. "The challenge of Dominion has been honored for 10,000 years in our culture," Tyke continued. "Never before has a Drax been defeated by a physically smaller species." He turned to face Minji directly. "I have misjudged your species. What you lack in physical might, you compensate for with ingenuity and something we do not understand. Compassion toward enemies." Minji stepped forward. "It's not weakness to help others," she said. "It's our greatest strength. Humans survive because we work together." "In the swamp," Tyke said, his voice quieter now, "you could have left me to die. Our laws would have supported your right to do so, yet you risked yourself to help me." He shook his head slowly. "No Drax would have done the same." Director Kang stepped up beside Minji. "What happens now, Commander?" "We honor our agreement," Tyke replied. "The mining operations will cease. The Drax Armada will leave this system." A cheer rose from the human scientists. Tyke raised his hand for silence. "But not all of us will go," he added. "With your permission, I would leave behind one diplomatic vessel. I believe our peoples have much to learn from each other." 3 days later, the sky above Proxima b was clear for the first time in weeks. The Drax ships departed one by one, their engines glowing bright against the orange sky. Only a small vessel remained, landing gently near the human outpost. Inside the communications dome, Minji received an unexpected message from Earth Command. The solar flares had finally subsided, allowing transmissions to reach the outpost. "They want to establish formal relations with the Drax Empire," Director Kang told her, looking up from the message. "They're naming you as Earth's first ambassador." Minji was surprised. Me, but I'm a research scientist, not a diplomat. After what you accomplished, Dr. Song said with a smile, I think you've earned the title. The next morning, Minji packed a small bag with essential items. The journey to the Drax homeworld would take 3 months. She would be the first human to visit their system. Outside the outpost, Commander Tyke waited beside his ship. When he saw Minji approach, he did something unexpected. He bowed slightly, bending his rigid frame in a gesture of respect. My warriors are still uncomfortable with this arrangement, he admitted as they walked toward the ship. They do not understand why I treat you as an equal. Change is difficult for everyone, Minji replied. It will take time. At the entrance to the ship, Tyke paused. I still do not fully understand how a physically inferior being defeated me, he admitted. Minji smiled. Perhaps that's your first lesson about humans, Commander. We're never what we seem. As the ship lifted off, Minji watched the human outpost grow smaller below. The scientists waved from the ground. Beyond them, she could see the mountains where the Drax had been mining, now quiet and still. The planet would heal itself in time. Inside the ship, Drax warriors watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. One offered her water in a container sized for her hands. Another adjusted the atmospheric controls to match human preferences. Small changes, Minji thought. This was how understanding began. Not with grand speeches or treaties, but with simple acts of consideration. The ship accelerated toward the stars, carrying the first seeds of an unexpected alliance. Behind them, Proxima b continued its eternal orbit, indifferent to the momentous shift that had occurred on its surface. The end.